Hey, Derek, guess what?
Hit me with it.
We just got a promotion with Audible.
Audible, fantastic. I love Audible.
Do you know what the cool thing about this deal is?
What's that?
If our listeners go to audibletrial.com/supercinemapod, they get a free trial with Audible. And do you know what they get with that?
What do they get with that? Tell me.
They get one free audiobook of their choice, and they get 2 free Audible originals, which is special content that Audible makes available free for all its subscribers.
Are you kidding me? That deal is so good, I may go myself and sign them.
Do you think they let you keep the books after you're done?
No, you're not going to tell me they let you keep the books after you're done.
Yes. In fact, you can go sign up for a trial, and you can cancel before the trial ends, and you get to keep the books you've already downloaded.
Well, I don't see how you can beat that with a stick.
Exactly, yeah. And you can, lots of great books, especially for fans of this show. You can listen to Super Gods by Grant Morrison, which is all about like how the superhero comics have changed and evolved over time. Or you can check out Marvel Comics, The Untold Story.
Which is a terrific book. I have that both in hardcover, and I listen to that on Audible myself in my car while traveling back and forth.
And there's also another similar book that's called Slugfest, which is about like the wars between Marvel and DC Comics.
Oh, okay.
So that's another one you got to check out too. So yeah, head on over to audibletrial.com/supercinemapod and start your free trial right now. You get 1 free audiobook and 2 free Audible originals, and you can keep them even if you cancel before it's over.
What's your position, the Bat Vigilante in Gotham?
Daily Planet. Wait, do I own this one? Or is that the other guy?
Civil liberties are being trampled on in your city. Good people living in fear.
Don't believe everything you hear, son.
I've seen it, Mr. Wayne. He thinks he's above the law.
The Daily Planet criticizing those who think they're above the law is a little hypocritical, wouldn't you say? Considering every time your hero saves a cat out of a tree, you write a puff-piece editorial about an alien who, if he wanted to, could burn the whole place down. There wouldn't be a damn thing we could do to stop it.
Most of the world doesn't share your opinion, Mr. Wayne.
Maybe it's the Gotham City in me, and we just have a bad history with freaks dressed like clowns.
Boys! Bruce Wayne meets Clark Kent. I love it. I love bringing people together. How are we?
Lex.
Hello. Good. Hi. Hello. Lex, it is a pleasure. Ow! Wow, that is a good grip. You should not pick a fight with this person. So, after all these years, we finally got you over to Metropolis.
Well, I thought I'd come drink you dry.
Well, you're welcome. You should out to Harbor more often, though. I'd love to show you my labs. Maybe we could partner on something. My R&D is up to all sorts of no good.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I am half of your host, Perry Constantine.
And as always, on the other house, Derek Ferguson. Good evening, folks. How are you, Perry?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good over here. How are you doing?
Okay, a little bit of the allergies messing with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, folks, if you hear me coughing and doing all that other stuff, don't worry. That's just my allergies playing hob with me, as they always do. All day long, nothing. Then, of course, as soon as I get ready to do this with you, then they start.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. Usually when I've got my daughter next to me, she's fine until I start recording, and then she wants attention.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It wouldn't be fun otherwise.
Oh, yeah. So we got a little bit of news today. Not a whole lot because we recorded, just a few days ago, but a few things did pop up in the past few days. One of them is there's apparently a Blade casting rumor for the Mahershala Ali movie. And we talked before about the whole rumor that was going around that if Wesley Snipes came back, they would be introducing the Fallon Gray character playing his daughter, who would be his daughter in like a Blade continuation / reboot, and how the comics almost had something similar.
Right.
So it looks like this new casting room, and again, this is all a rumor, but there's the production is actively casting a character named Ruby, a teen that's said to be thoughtful, serious, and burdened by growing up in a complex world. And it's expected that she's going to be playing a strong supporting role in the film. But one of the things about the Marvel's casting calls is the names that they put on these casting sheets are often inaccurate because Marvel tries to hide stuff. So a
Right.
lot of people are theorizing this could actually be a casting for Fallon Gray, Blade's daughter.
Oh, okay.
So it looks like we might actually get that.
Well, we look forward to seeing any. Even though I'm not exactly jumping over, like I said, I got nothing against Mahershala Ali, but
Mhm.
for some reason I look at him and I don't see Blade.
Okay.
I don't know, and maybe it's because we just recently watched Blade 2, and I'm saying, well, damn, Wesley Snipes could still kick ass. Why not just get him? But I understand it's that whole thing that they trying to divorce themselves from. All the previous iterations of Marvel.
Right.
So,
and now that we've got,
Sarah.
Now that they've got they're introducing the multiverse with WandaVision and Doctor Strange and possibly Spider-Man, then maybe we could see Wesley Snipes reprise the role at some point.
Like I said, if I had my way, they would do the thing with his daughter taking over being Blade, and he would, take over being Whistler, essentially, and that's something I would like to see myself. But hey, I don't run Marvel. They don't ask my opinion, so hey.
Something else new is because of WandaVision, a lot of people are developing a newfound affection for Age of Ultron, because you remember when it came out, like a lot of mixed reaction to it, and a lot of people were kind of cold on it, and a lot of people still were kind of down on the movie as like being one of the worst of the MCU outings, just like the same reception that the Dark World got.
And I really never understood that, because actually, well, I don't know. It's just me. To me, Age of Ultron feels the most like an Avengers comic book.
I loved Age of Ultron. Yeah, same here.
It's like, I watch it and it's like the same feeling I have like when I used to go and get one of those 64-page Avengers specials. Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Yeah, I totally dug Age of Ultron, so I'm glad that it's getting kind of this renewed affection. And the same thing happened with The Dark World after Endgame came out, because they had that whole sequence set on Asgard during Endgame. And after that movie came out, a lot of people were like, hey, Dark World's actually not so bad.
It's not. I don't understand what people don't like about the Dark World. And also, I was going to suggest, because, we got another week until we get, of course, the Snyder Cut of Justice League.
Another few weeks, actually.
Yeah, another few weeks. So I was going to suggest, since for next week, since WandaVision is ending this week, we do Age of Ultron next week.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that'll work out.
This week is the last episode, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a good time for us to revisit, Age of Ultron.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love Age of Ultron, so I'm totally down with that.
I love the hell out of Age. I really didn't understand the backlash that people had for it. A lot of people didn't like it, and I really didn't understand why.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and we'll talk about this more when we talk about Age of Ultron next week, but I know there was the whole thing about the Black Widow stuff in there, and which I feel was more misinterpreted and just kind of sloppily constructed, as opposed to like as bad as everybody says it was.
Yeah. Like I said, I couldn't see it myself, but you know what? Long ago, I made up my mind that I think what a lot of people happens is that, and I see it happen with WandaVision. People are more pissed off about WandaVision because they come up with these theories, and then they watch the episode, and the theories are all wrong.
It's exactly what I was about to say. Exactly.
Well, go ahead and say it then, bro.
Well, I remember seeing all this stuff about the aerospace engineer, right? In WandaVision, Monica's friend who's going to make her this. Everyone's like, oh, it's Rhodey, or oh, it's Reed Richards, or oh, it's whoever, and it comes in and it's just like nobody.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, well, the real aerospace engineer is going to be coming in later, right? People are more pissed because it's not what they expected, as opposed to just enjoying what it is.
I don't understand why people just can't sit back and watch. you know, it's like watching movies with my wife. I'm watching movies with my wife, for instance, and she'll be asking me questions. Well, why is he doing that? And why is he doing? And do you think he's going to do this? And you think? And I said, see, my wife is just like a MCU fan. You know, she's trying to get ahead of the plot and figure it out instead of just sitting back and watching it. You know, I mean, these people are doing the work for you. You don't have to sit there and try to figure. But you know, and I really think that that's the problem with a lot of people is that they come up with these theories, and that's what they're more interested in, seeing their theories prove right. And then of course, when their theories don't pan out, oh well, that was a shit episode. Oh, this is a horrible show. This is a terrible.
Right. Like I remember there were theories when we saw the Age of Ultron trailers that like maybe time travel was going to be involved and Steve Rogers was going to be going, because there's the scene when he's in the castle. Everyone's like, oh, maybe that's him going back to World War II or something like that. And when it didn't happen, everyone's getting pissed off. It just because it didn't happen the way you expected it to be doesn't make it bad.
You and I are a rare breed, my friend, in that we are just content to just sit and watch the story.
Something else I've noticed too is a lot of the fan theory stuff that I've read online. It really shows you that a lot of fans aren't writers and shouldn't be writers.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They really aren't.
Two other pieces of things to talk about. So there was a response to Ray Fisher continuing the ongoing saga of Ray Fisher. There was Catherine B. Forrest. So she was a former federal judge who was a third party hired by Warner Brothers to investigate Fisher's accusations. So she investigated and she found she looked into the alleged misconduct and one of the things that Fisher has said is that Walter Hamada kept trying to interfere with the investigation. And she came out and she says, no, Hamada did not interfere with the investigation. Her exact words, I am disappointed by continued public statements made suggesting that Walter Hamada in any way interfered with the Justice League investigation. He did not. I interviewed him extensively on more than one occasion and specifically interviewed him concerning his very limited interaction with Mr. Fisher. I found Mr. Hamada credible and forthcoming. I concluded that he did nothing that impeded or interfered with the investigation. To the contrary, the information he provided was useful and advanced the investigation. So that was her. And then Ray Fisher came out with another statement in response. And this is the first time he's been a little bit more specific about some of the accusations. Specifically, Toby Emmerich, Jeff Johns, and John Berg. And so he was told about, these were apparently conversations that they had. Prior to the Justice League reshoots, racially discriminatory conversations were had and entertained on multiple occasions by Warner Brothers Pictures executives. Had I been aware of those conversations in real time, I would have addressed them in real time. However, it wasn't until the summer of 2020 that individuals who were in those meetings felt comfortable sharing with me what they had witnessed firsthand. So when it comes to matters involving race, I always try to give the benefit of the doubt to those who may be ignorant of their own biases. But when you have studio executives, particularly Jeff Johns, saying we can't have an angry black man at the center of the movie, and then those executives use their power to reduce and remove all black people from the movie, they are no longer entitled to any benefit associated with doubt. Toby, Jeff, and John were not ignorant of their biases. They understood full well the racist rhetoric they chose to entertain in those meetings was offensive, discriminatory, and unacceptable. Furthermore, they dared not speak those things to me, nor any other black person associated with the film. Instead, they chose the cowardly route of gaslighting, complete with extremely problematic requests such as asking me to play Cyborg like Quasimodo and forcing a scene to be reshot so they could highlight the existence of Cyborg's penis. Unfortunately, those were just some of the issues. And it continues going on and says, the truth will continue to reveal itself. But he doesn't go any further. He doesn't really mention anything about Joss Whedon here. And so that's what we've gotten so far. So what do you think?
I don't think anything. I am no longer concerned with Ray Fisher or whatever. Seriously, I'm no longer concerned with him or whatever it is that he's trying to prove. Or, you know what? If you got legitimate charges or complaints or whatever to make, go ahead and make them. Don't be dribbing and drabbing every couple of days and you got to, I mean, if you have something legitimate that you have to say, call a press conference and go ahead and state it and lay it out there for everybody to see so it can be investigated properly instead of just dragging this thing on. Because he's already burned his bridges, right? I mean,
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, he's burned his bridges. So I don't understand why he keeps dragging this out.
I don't know. Maybe he's hoping for some sort of like documentary series deal or some other studio to come in and be like, we're gonna put him under contract or something. I don't know. Maybe it's something like that.
I mean, or maybe he thinks that they're going to pay him off, to go away. Because see, now my thinking is that with all of the press about Justice League now, he figured they wouldn't want any negative press associated with the movie. But let's face it, unless the only thing that could derail the popularity of this movie is if Zack Snyder showed up buck naked in Times Square screwing a goat. And even then, I don't think that would have any.
Yeah, I'm not so sure either.
I mean, look, it would take something on the level of that. We'd have to get like all of the money that like all the money that Justice League made was funneled into a child pornography ring. It would take something on that level.
Yeah.
To derail the popularity and anticipation for this movie.
And also the two things I notice here. First off, these are secondhand accusations, right? He wasn't even in those meetings, right? This is stuff he heard from some other people,
right? That
he's then relaying. So how? My question is, why aren't those people coming forward about it if it was so god awful? But second thing too is it's not like Jeff Johns is going around saying N-word this, N-word that, right? I mean, he made some statements that were probably insensitive and but were probably rooted in actual studio concerns, like having the angry black man stereotype in the movie. And I do remember there was a whole kerfluffle a few years ago about the cyborg character in general in the comic books, and how when they had done an ongoing series, I think they had made a point specifically to restore some of his biology, because it was this whole idea of like him losing parts of his body, like his penis and all that, was a kind of demasculating of black men is kind of like the charge I heard in some paper or article I had read at the time. So it seemed like a specific concern that Johns was concerned about addressing, which, while ham-fisted, doesn't seem as maliciously racist as Ray Fisher was trying to paint all this.
First of all, I've never been able to understand why they are so hell-bent on shoehorning Cyborg into the Justice League anyway. Because to me, anytime I think of Cyborg, it's the Titans.
Yes.
And now that I've seen him in Doom Patrol, I can say, okay, yeah. But you know what? Cyborg to me seems more of a fit for the Doom Patrol anyway than the Justice League. And the guy who was playing Cyborg in Doom Patrol, he's terrific.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah.
He's fantastic. Now, if you got him and put him in the Justice League movie, yeah, okay. But I've never, because even right from the start when they said Cyborg, I said, well, that's a weird, if instead of Cyborg it had been Black Lightning, okay, I could have understood that, because Black Lightning's been around longer.
And just to mention the actor's name on Doom Patrol, it's Jovian Wade.
Yeah,
and he's great as Cyborg. I love him in Doom Patrol.
Yeah, there are other black characters that they could have put into Justice League except for Cyborg. The only reason why I figured that they put him in there was, of course, you got the Mother Box connection to Apocalypse. So I said, okay, well, I'm willing to go with that. But to me, he always was an odd choice.
Yeah, and that's something that comes out of the New 52, because Jeff Johns brought him into the New 52 and had him replace Martian Manhunter in the when they tried to reboot the DC universe. I've never been. When they announced that, I was always kind of surprised. I'm like, why is Cyborg in the Justice League? And also, I was kind of annoyed because Martian Manhunter is probably my favorite Justice League character. So,
Martian Manhunter has been in just about every incarnation of the Justice League.
Yes.
So I mean, he's like the guy.
Yeah.
He's like Mr. Justice League.
Exactly. Yeah.
More than any other character, it's the Martian Manhunter. So yeah, I would have much preferred to see him in the movie. But I can understand why they probably wouldn't want to hit him in there, because they say, well, basically he's got the same powers as Superman.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can see why they would want a character, that has different powers visually.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different visual thing, and character that looks like him. So, but hey, like I keep saying, we don't make these movies, so
Right.
They don't ask us our opinion.
And one more piece of news that came out is just before we started recording, I saw there's a trailer for a new superhero movie called Thunder Force with Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer.
Yeah, I haven't watched the trailer yet. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I just watched the trailer before we started, and I posted it in our Superhero Cinephiles group. It looks a lot of fun. It looks like Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Butler are really having a good time.
I'm sure it is. I mean, a lot of people, for whatever reason, don't like Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah.
I think she's, and you know what? My wife didn't like her. And I said, okay, well, you know what you do? And I pulled up Spy. I said, sit down and watch Spy. She watched Spy. She said, yeah, you know what? I got to admit, that was good. She was good. Yeah. I always, I don't know. There are just certain people that everybody seems to dislike. And then when I ask them, well, why don't you like her? They can't tell me. They just, well, I just don't like her.
Yeah, yeah.
And Melissa McCarthy, she's one of those.
Yeah, and so it looks a lot of fun. And also Jason Bateman looks like he's got a cameo in it as well.
Oh, well.
And Bobby Cannavale plays the villain in it. So it looks like it'll be fun. It's coming out on Netflix April 9th.
Now, this last movie that she was in, that was a terrible movie. The one with the guy, what's his name? The one who swears out he's so talented. James Corden.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that one.
Don't watch it. It's a movie where James Corden is artificial intelligence that wants to take over the world. And
super intelligence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Terrible movie.
Yeah, I didn't I never even heard of that.
Don't waste your time.
Okay. Yeah, James Corden, I never really got the kind of, popularity that he has.
James Corden. Mind you, I don't dislike the guy, but I just don't get why he's so popular. Yeah,
same here.
It seems to me that he's one of these people that thinks he's more talented than he actually is. And I think what it is that it's just that enthusiasm and willingness to please the audience. I think that's what, comes across.
Right.
More than anything else. See, me, because he took over the show when, what's his name left? Craig Ferguson. And once Craig Ferguson left, that was it.
Yeah, I remember I'd only seen a few episodes, but I'd seen some of Craig Ferguson's stand-up, and I always thought he was pretty funny.
That was my guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he had that snarky, I don't give a shit attitude.
Yeah.
Whereas that eagerness to please thing, that I don't respond to that.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I wish, like I said, not that I wish him ill. I don't have nothing against him. I saw him in Cats, and he was terrible in that one too.
Well, I think pretty much
that whole movie was terrible.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Oh my God, that was the one movie. I was watching Cats here, and I watched it like 2:00 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, and I said, "Well, let me watch this shit." So help me, I felt like I was on a low-level acid trip watching that movie. That's how surreal it was.
There was an article that someone had wrote, and it was just about watching the experience of watching Cats. I'll try to find it and I'll try to send it to you. But it had me in stitches.
Oh my God, and just seeing Rebel Wilson of all people prancing around in cat. I can't describe. I can't describe. Judi Dench. I mean, there are sights in this movie that should never be seen. Oh my God!
But it gets worse. There was a butthole cut of Cats.
What's a bubble cut?
Butthole cut.
Oh, butthole. Ooh. Do I really want to know?
No, you don't. But you could just Google Cats butthole cut, and you'll see what
that's
the story
all right.
is behind it.
That is cool. That is. You know what? It's one of it's one of those movies that you watch it, and when you get to the end of it, you say to yourself, who did they make this movie for? Serious. You know, who did they think this movie was going to appeal to?
Mm-hmm.
It's a bizarre. It's a bizarre movie.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Anyway.
one of those. It's one of those movies. If they had made, let me say this real quick.
Mhm.
If they had made it back in the 1970s, it would have been like the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It would have ran for years as a midnight. Yeah, it would have ran for years as a midnight movie.
Or like the Room.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. It's exactly that type of movie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. I also saw I'm not sure if you're up on TV watching, but they had the second episode of Superman and Lois came out, and also the premiere of the 7th season of The Flash.
I haven't watched it yet. I will most likely watch it after we're done.
It's good. And I saw people complaining that there wasn't enough action in the first episode, and I think we kind of talked about that really briefly. But we get some more action in this episode, and we get some more hints into who Captain Luthor is and what his whole deal is. We see Morgan Edge finally makes an appearance, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. I still think the guy who's playing Lana's husband, I still think Lana's husband's a dick. They still aren't doing anything to really improve my opinion of that guy. But it's good. It's nice to see the characters interacting more and just seeing the series progress, and just seeing like the different conflicts that develop, like the interfamily conflicts, and also with the pressures of being Superman and all that on his relationship with Lois's dad and all that kind of stuff. So all this is playing through. It's really enjoyable. I'm really excited to see more of it. Like most of the CW shows, I've just kind of gotten the habit of waiting until it comes to streaming. But this is one that I'm probably going to fire up the CW app for every week.
Yeah, matter of fact, that's what I used to do. I used to wait until like the season of Flash was over, the season of Supergirl was over, and then we go to Netflix, and then I would like just binge the whole season.
Yeah,
like in 2 or 3 days. But Superman, yeah, that's the one. Like the next day, I go right to the CW app and I watch it.
And it comes at the perfect time for me because it comes out for me like on Wednesday here. So Wednesday night, I get home from work and I'm just pour myself a drink and just fire up the CW app and just watch Superman and Lois. That's my Wednesday night routine now.
Cool. Good one.
Okay, now speaking of Superman, that's as good a transition as we're going to get into today's movie. So we go from talking about a good Superman to talking about a not so good one, and we're talking about Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Cut.
The ultimate edition, which if you don't have it, it's on HBO Max. And as always, we heartily endorse that if you have not get it, and if you can afford it, of course, I'm not asking anybody to go broke, but if you can, it's well worth the money.
Yeah. Now, you hadn't seen the Ultimate Cut before, the Ultimate Edition before, so...
No, I had. I had seen the regular plain old version, and I watched it this morning. Matter of fact, I watched it because the damn thing is like 3.5 hours long.
I know, yeah.
So my understanding is like 30 minutes is added to the original movie. So I watched it like 9, 10 o'clock this morning. And well, you tell me what you think first, and then I'll go.
So
you go first.
Everyone talked about how the Ultimate Edition, the whole reason I even bothered with the Ultimate, because someone asked me on, Adam Garcia asked me online, he's like, well, why have you watched this movie more than once?
I saw that. He said, why are you watching this again?
Because I did see it in the theaters when it came out. And
me too. Yeah, I saw it in theaters
and I immediately regretted it once the credits rolled. And then when it came out on video, my then wife at the time, my first wife, she was curious to watch it. So we had watched, we had gone through a kind of like a binge. We had watched like all the Batman movies. We had watched all the Superman movies. And then we got to Batman v Superman. After it was over, I asked her, I'm like, what'd you think? And she's like, I don't understand why they're fighting. And I'm like, nobody does. It doesn't make any sense.
Nobody. Yeah. That's done. Yeah, nobody. You know what? Patricia asked me the same thing when we see it in the theater. She said, I still don't get why they were fighting. And well, neither did I.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'd seen it. I saw it in theater, and then I think I saw it like on HBO or something
Mhm.
like that. A couple of months later, I watched it again, and I watched it. Okay, here's the thing. Watching it today, I could watch it with a completely different mindset
Mhm.
because unlike when I saw it the first time in the theater, I didn't know what to expect.
Mhm.
But now this time I knew what I was getting. So I was able to look at it, I think, with a little bit more objectivity
Mhm.
than I did. Because the first time I saw it, I came out the theater, I said, well, that was a piece of shit.
Mhm.
And but that was more for disappointment than
Mhm.
anything because I'm watching it and I saw what I perceived to be a lot of missed opportunities.
Mhm.
It seems like this was a movie that for everything it got right, it immediately turned around and said, okay, well, let's screw this up.
Yeah. I had a low opinion. I had low expectations for this movie before I saw it in the theater, just because of how terrible Man of Steel was. And so going into it, my expectations were already pretty low. And somehow the movie couldn't even meet that very low bar. And it was even worse than I expected. I mean, I even defended, I remember the Ben Affleck was, a casting choice that was, cursed, you know, cursed as often as the day is long, right? Everybody was
Mm.
so up in arms about Ben Affleck playing Batman. At the time, I'm like, you know what? I've seen Ben Affleck in some good stuff. I think I want to see what he does with Batman. I mean, I'm not completely sold on the idea, but I'm not against it. Another one
Right.
I defended was Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I defended that one because I had seen him in Social Network. I know he's a good actor. I'm like, if he plays the character, similar to how he played Mark Zuckerberg in Social Network, it might be an interesting take on Lex Luthor, and especially because they
Mhm.
released photos of him with the shaved head, and I'm like, well, actually, he looks pretty menacing like that. But
Okay.
so I was half right. Ben Affleck was really good, and I was right to defend him. I was not right to defend Jesse Eisenberg.
Matter of fact, I'm going to go so far as to say that Ben Affleck is the best thing Ben Affleck is the best thing in the movie. Him, Jeremy Irons, Gal Gadot,
Mhm.
they're the best things in the movie, really.
Yes,
I
yeah.
mean, if you because you know what? Because this actually is a Batman movie.
Yeah.
This isn't Superman is a supporting character in the movie. Actually,
Mhm.
the movie is about Bruce Wayne dealing with uh being re-traumatized all over again.
Mhm.
In the beginning, when he goes to Metropolis and Superman's fighting with General Zod,
Mhm.
and they're tearing up the city, and there's shit falling all over the place, and things are exploding, and he's watching people being crushed. And I get what Zack Snyder was trying to do with the 9/11 imagery, but
Mhm.
I think he pushed it a little bit too far.
Oh yeah.
He did. I think he went too far with that because it was too real. It was and for those of you who don't know, I live in New York. I live in
Mhm.
Brooklyn, so I I vividly remember 9/11. I remember walking about 5 o'clock that same day, walking out and seeing tanks. Well, not
Mhm.
tanks, but like half tracks and
Mhm.
military vehicles going up Flatbush Avenue. And they had on Atlantic Avenue, there's like a street with all kinds of Arab shops and
Mhm.
stores and stuff like that. There was military all over there.
Jesus.
Had a corridor. Yeah. So the 9/11 imagery, I think he pushed that a little bit too far.
Mhm.
I could have done with a little, I didn't need for it to be that real.
And also, one thing I expected is that the whole idea behind Batman being against Superman is what I thought it would be, the fact that Superman's actions had resulted in Metropolis being destroyed, and Batman would have been more like, look, you can't do it this way. You have to be a better. But then you watch this movie and you're like, Batman's just as much of a bastard as Superman is. He has
Well,
just
yeah,
as little concern for collateral damage as Superman does.
yeah. I mean, like I said, this whole movie is about him because when he comes to Metropolis and sees all that, Bruce Wayne is
Mhm.
re-traumatized all over again,
Mhm.
and that's what the movie he's dealing with. Well, like you said, you made a statement sometime, and I attribute it to you because I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
you said this because you're a pretty perceptive guy, that this is a movie that would have been over with in 30 minutes if people just talked to each other.
Yeah, I don't think I said that, but I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Like you said, Bruce Wayne, he goes to him and talks to him and said, listen, you can't go around doing shit like this. You
Mhm.
can't tear up the city and stuff like that. There's like, I would say a good six distinctive parts in this movie where the people would just talk to each other, the movie would be over.
Yeah, yeah. And we pretty much have Alfred making that argument throughout the whole movie, right?
I mean, for all the talking that goes on in this movie, nobody actually says a damn thing to each other.
No.
That's worth saying.
It's just they're all talking at each other and past each other.
Except for Alfred and Bruce.
Well, even still, I think Bruce isn't really having any of it. So Alfred's still just kind of like talking past Bruce because Bruce won't listen.
Well, Alfred is talking, Bruce ain't listening.
Yeah.
You know, his whole thing is, well, kill Superman. What? Wait, what? How do we jump to kill Superman so quick? Shouldn't we try, inviting him for lunch?
Mm-hmm. So,
oh my God.
I saw when the Ultimate Edition came out, everyone's like, oh, it's so much better, right? It makes for such a better movie. And I watched it hoping, some vague hope that maybe it would make the movie a little bit better. It makes the movie more complete, but it doesn't make the movie better, is what I felt. Like,
this is a movie that starts off with about 20 people in the desert. We got about like 20 people get slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
We see bodies get incinerated. And that pretty much sets the tone for the whole movie, because this movie is about darkness, depression, and death.
Well, I mean,
really,
so much so that they killed Jimmy Olsen, right? First, they make Jimmy Olsen a CIA assassin, posing as a photographer. And then they have KGB, shoot him in the fucking head. Well,
the theory that I've heard is that wasn't the real Jimmy Olsen. It was a CIA agent just using his identity because Jimmy Olsen is a well-known, photographer. So this was a CIA agent that appropriated his identity to, get closer, which is a theory I'm going with, because I would really just hate to think that Zack Snyder just off Jimmy Olsen like that just for no good goddamn reason.
No, that is actually what he did. Like I that would be an interesting theory, but Zack Snyder has pretty much, dismissed that theory himself.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So that's supposed to be the real. Oh man, that sucks.
So I'm bringing up the articles. This was from an article back in. Oh, this is from last year. So.
Because that was a theory I had always heard, and it would explain why he has introduced himself to Lois Lane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he just said like he just their role, Jimmy's purpose in Batman v Superman was just to die.
Well, that's not a good reason, because then it could have been because now you're just telling me you did it for the shock value.
Yeah, basically.
Which you don't do that to Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy Olsen is just as much a part of the Superman mythos as Superman himself, his parents, Lois Lane, Crypto. Jimmy Olsen.
Here's what he said back in. So here's what he said. He said, I thought if it were Jesse, he goes out and he goes, I'm Jimmy Olsen. You'd be like, oh my God, we're going to have Jimmy Olsen the whole movie, right? And then if he got shot, you'd just be like, what? You can't do that. And the article asked, well, if you're just going to, why bring in Jimmy Olsen if you're just going to kill him off? And here's what Snyder said.
Exactly. Yeah.
We just did it as this little aside because we had been tracking where we thought the movies were going to go, and we don't have room for Jimmy Olsen, our big pantheon of characters, but we can have fun with him, right? So Zack Snyder's idea of having fun with Jimmy Olsen is, putting a bullet in his head.
Putting a bullet in his head. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm still going to believe that wasn't the real Jimmy Olsen. I don't care what he said. It makes it easier for me to swallow if I can believe that wasn't the real Jimmy Olsen. But so that whole opening scene in the desert kind of sets the tone for, and of course, the destruction of Metropolis, which we got to see again, and the 9/11 image, that pretty much to me sets the tone for the whole movie, which, as I said, now that I've seen already, I can watch it with because this is not a fun movie.
No. Well, we also get it's also letting us know right from the jump that it's going to be Frank Miller pornography, right? Because we get the scene at the beginning with the parents dying and the pearls falling in slow motion and all that.
Yeah.
It's just like the total, wanking all over Frank Miller's comics.
Oh yeah. I mean, Well, I mean, Ben Affleck himself, he's in the Frank Miller bat suit.
Yeah, it's in the Dark
Yeah.
Knight Returns bat suit.
Pretty much, which I have to say, he looks damn good in it.
Well, that's one thing that I can never fault Snyder for is the costumes in these movies, in Man of Steel and in Batman v Superman. They look amazing. Maybe a little bit too darkly lit, but the designs are really good.
And we got to give Zack Snyder credit in that he actually, instead of having Batman in this armored suit all the time, it's a cloth costume.
Well, it's a kind of armor, but it's a much more flexible type of armor. So we can actually see him move around. Yeah.
Right. We actually see him move like what you and I and a bunch of other people, the best live action Batman fight sequence in film history in the warehouse.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I mean, you look at that and you say, "Holy shit! Why can't they do that in every Batman movie?"
Yeah. It plays out like one of the fight scenes in the Arkham games.
Yeah, I mean, I rewound that thing twice to watch.
Yeah, that was and that's one of the things that Snyder is really good at directing action. He knows how to direct an action scene. He knows how to frame it well. He knows how to choreograph it well. All of that, no complaints from me at all. But it's when we get to the other stuff, that's when we have issues.
No, well.
And so going back to that first scene, also, is it just me or is Lois kind of needlessly a bitch in this scene when she meets fake Jimmy Olsen?
Everybody's needless.
Because she's like
needlessly a bitch in this movie. Look at Perry White. I said, damn, I wanted to say, what is your problem, dude?
I'll get to Perry White in a minute because that's another one I got bones to pick with. But she comes in and she's talking about this other photographer. She's like, you know what I liked about him? And he's like, what's that? She's like, he was quiet.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? Jesus, lady.
I mean, you don't introduce, hey, how you doing? Nice working with you and everything like that. She said, yeah, you know what I liked about him? Oh, he was quiet. I said, wow. But you know what? Amy Adams, as good an actress as she is, her Lois Lane is entirely unmemorable to me. She's not as bad as Kate Bosworth, which to me is the worst Lois Lane. But it's like there's nothing that stands out about her Lois Lane.
Yeah.
And I really don't feel that she and Henry Cavill have much chemistry. I really don't. I had a hard time. That stupid scene in the bathtub.
Oh God, yeah, that was ridiculous.
Where, folks, let me tell you two things that you will see in movies that actually in real life is impossible to do. I will be a little personal here. I tried it myself. You cannot make love in a bathtub and you cannot make love on a staircase.
Not a bathtub that size, at least. Yeah.
Not really in any bath. You need like a hot tub, really. But a bathtub that size, no. I mean, that was a silly scene that was trying to, trying to break the mood, trying to break the tension, but it just comes as being something from a sitcom.
Yeah. Especially because they're in the midst of this serious conversation about, like, look, everybody thinks you killed a whole bunch of people. And now you're just going to say, like, oh, forget it. Let's have bathtub sex.
Well, everybody has every single conversation everybody has in this movie is serious. Nobody takes a minute, except for Perry White. The one scene where he's having a staff meeting and Clark is trying to sell him on the idea of doing a series of stories about Batman. And Perry says, crime wave in Gotham. In other news, water is wet. That's about the closest we come to humor in this movie, really.
Yeah. And that's a good transition to talking about Perry White because, my God, he's a fucking dick in this movie.
Oh, my God. He's just like, Perry White is supposed to be gruff. Yeah. And I think that what it is that because he has a conversation with Clark. And I think that what they were trying to get across that Perry feels a lot of frustration because print journalism is dying. And he's had to, make compromises. I think that's what they were trying to go for. But it didn't come across very well. Like you said, it just comes across as making Perry White like an unlikable dick.
Well, yeah, and also like I don't think Zack Snyder understands how newspapers work because you don't just take a reporter from one beat and just suddenly say like, oh, you're going to go cover the you're going to go cover sports now.
Yeah, Clark has a crime report. What's he doing? What's he telling? Oh, yeah, you have sports reporters for that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Who cover sports? You just don't tell Clark Kent, well, you're going to go cover the sports.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's not,
Clark, and Clark quite rightly says, well, screw you. No, I want to go investigate the Batman.
there's also he also sends him on the society. Like in that case, he got the invitation was for Clark Kent, so I understood that. But there is no story reason whatsoever for Perry White to keep hammering Clark about how come you haven't wrote about the football game yet.
Yeah, I mean that's like the only thing he's worried about through the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
That Clark won't write this story about this goddamn football game.
Yeah, yeah.
And quite frankly, it got on my nerve after a while. Why don't you go cover the football game then?
And also, and just like the whole thing where the end too, when she goes up she needs to get to Gotham, and she's like, I need the chopper. And he's like, I'm not giving you the chopper for a story. And she's like, Perry, it's not for a story. He's like, oh, well, okay then, go. I'm like, wait. So let me get this straight. The helicopter that the Daily Planet has is not to be used for going on stories. But if you got some personal business that you can't give any reason for why you need this helicopter for, that's
go
totally
ahead.
fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead and take it.
You're the keys, yeah.
Yeah. Here are the keys. Fine. Yeah. It makes no sense at all.
Mm-hmm.
No sense at all.
Yeah. And just like his whole, like the whole thing where he's like, the American consciousness died with Bobby Martin and John. It's like, yeah, I get what you're trying to say there, but the whole purpose of Perry White is that he's gruff, but he wants to make the world a better place. He wants to use the news to do that. And Clark is doing that, and Perry White is saying, no, fuck you.
Basically, yeah, pretty much. It's and Lawrence Fishburne does the best he can, and I understand that he's got to work with what he's given with. But just because he's Lawrence Fishburne, he deserves better. And the Perry White, I know.
Well, I mean, everyone in this movie deserves better than what they're giving, right? Like this is a movie that is so filled with good actors being forced to read a terrible script.
Yeah. Because the script is not about anything.
No.
Once you really get down to it, it really isn't about anything. It's a mishmash of half a dozen different plots. Mm-hmm. We've got the death of Superman. We've got Doomsday. We've got
Dark Knight Returns.
We've got to introduce Wonder Woman. We've got, there's half a dozen different storylines and plots taken from different DC comics and turned into this Frankensteinian.
There's some Injustice stuff thrown in there as well.
Huh?
There's some Injustice stuff, from the video game series.
Yeah. So so like I said, it's all these different stories that are totally unrelated, mind you. Mm-hmm. And just like Dr. Frankenstein stitched together a monster out of it, that's what Zack Snyder did. You know, he took half a dozen different plots and stitched them together into this unholy creation.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing is one of the big complaints, one of the big rebuttals everybody had because one of my biggest issues with Man of Steel was the fact that he kills Zod at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And you always have the defenders coming out and saying, well, he killed Zod in the comic books. He killed Zod in Superman 2. And well, there was nothing else he could do. And so let me just get this out of the way first off. So first off, the comic books, right? John Byrne did this story in the 80s where he had General Zod and the other Krypton supervillains come in. It was like not from the real Krypton, they were from a pocket universe or something, because John Byrne was obsessed with the idea that Superman can be the only Kryptonian.
Right.
So he brought them in. He had to work through this really bizarre kind of explanation for how they exist in the first place. And they end up getting rendered powerless. And Superman is worried that they pose a threat, that he comes and he exposes them to a lethal amount of kryptonite and kills them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when people cite that story, I think they're forgetting the point that a lot of Superman fans fucking hate that story because of what he does in that. Like, and Superman writer, and I think that was John Byrne's last story on the book. And after that story, like, Superman writers spent like the next 20 years twisting themselves in knots to try and justify and explain that story. Like there was a time when he went out into exile in space and all this kind of stuff. Another issue where in Justice Morrison's JLA, Morpheus, the Sandman, comes in. He could, or I think, no, not Morpheus. I think it was Hal Jordan confronts Superman about it. And Superman says, look, that is something that I was wrong. I should never have done that. And it's something that haunts me every single day of my life. Like, they made a good effort to say, like, this is not who Superman is. This was a mistake. This is a bad storytelling choice.
Right.
And so when people say, well, he did that in the comics, it's like also saying, well, yeah, Tony Stark in the comics went crazy and was working for Kang and, you know, tried to kill the Avengers. Doesn't mean we want to see Robert Downey Jr. do that.
and Marvel spent a whole lot of time retconning that away too.
Yeah. So just because something happened in the comics doesn't mean it was a good thing.
No. Matter of fact, if they never make mention of it again, there's a reason why they never make mention of it.
Yeah. And so the other one is Superman 2, right? They say, oh, well, he kills Zod in Superman 2. Well, no, he doesn't. And this has to do with, you know, the Salkins and Richard Lester coming in and butchering everything. But in Superman 2, Donner originally had a scene filmed where you have the depowered Kryptonian villains being taken away by the cops.
Right.
So they did survive. The intent wasn't, so people say, well, it wasn't in the final. Well, that wasn't Donner's choice, right? So to blame Donner for the fact that someone else fucked with his movie isn't fair. It's like blaming Zack Snyder for the problems with the reshoots Joss Whedon did on Justice League.
And I never had a problem with that. Like I said, you know, I always just assumed he sent them back to the Phantom Zone. When they fell down into the pit and everything like that, I figured he just sent them back to the Phantom Zone.
Well, like we've said, like in comic books, first rule of comics is if you don't see a body, they're not dead.
If you don't see a body, they're not dead. Exactly.
Yeah, so that addresses those. And now the other one, he had no choice. I could possibly buy that. And Mark Waid did a really good job of saying this when he reviewed this movie. And he said, look, if you're going to have Superman kill Zod, if you feel that's the only way you have to go, I don't like it, but there's a better way to do it. And you should have him, you need to show him like Zod threatening humanity and like throwing, and like you have to push Superman to his limit, trying to stop Zod from, you know, killing all these people. But instead, Superman's causing just as much damage as everyone else. So
right.
It doesn't have that same weight.
You have to have Zod with his hands around a child's neck.
Yeah.
Saying, I'm going to kill this child. To push Superman to make that decision. You know, you got to do something like that. You can't just say, well, he didn't have any other choice. Well, he's Superman. He'll find another way. He'll always find another way. That's why he's Superman.
Yeah.
It's just like we always say that Batman is always prepared. Superman will always find another way.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So there's a way to do it. And now even still, like, if you're going to make that argument, okay, he killed Zod, he had no choice. I don't like it. I can live with it. But then you have this movie. And the first time we see Superman in this movie, right, he breaks into this compound and he sees this warlord. He's got his gun on Lois's head. And what does he do? Superman slams him, a human guy, by the way, through two or three different... He straight up murders him.
He straight up murders that cat. You know,
that guy is going to be liquid by the end.
Oh, wait a minute. And here's the thing. Here's the insulting thing about that scene, Perry. We're supposed to buy it because Lois Lane's life was in danger.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to, well, that's the woman he loved. Whatever happened to Heat Vision?
I know. He's fast enough to slam the guy through two walls without any harm coming to Lois. Obviously, he's fast enough to disarm him.
He could have been across their head, and that would have been a better scene. That he's just standing there, and then all of a sudden, he's standing there, and the guy's got his finger pointed to Lois's head, and Superman's back where he had, spinning the gun around his finger.
Or
he's that fast.
Or he just kind of looks at the gun, his eyes glow red, and then the gun becomes so hot the guy drops it. Right? That stuff happens all the time in the Superman stories.
You and I have seen Superman do that 1,000 times, where he makes the gun too hot.
Yeah.
Now, I can understand maybe he didn't want to take a chance on the bullets exploding. I can see that, but still, he's fast enough to go across there and take the gun away from the guy.
Yeah.
And, he didn't have to go ahead. Because the first time I saw it in the theater, I said, well, damn, talk about overkill.
Yeah.
I said, he just killed that. But I said, Superman just straight up killed this guy.
He fucking liquefied him. Like that guy, there's not going to be anything left of that guy by the time he's done.
Oh, there's nothing left of him.
Yeah.
But like I said, the thing that's insulting to me is that I'm supposed to excuse it because he did it because he was afraid for Lois's life. Nah, bullshit. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Miss me with that, man.
Well, I mean, that whole plot too is just so stupid that because Lex Luthor sends KG Beast and his men out to this village to frame Superman. And
this movie,
first off, like apparently Superman has nothing better to do with his time than just fly around and listen for when Lois Lane is in trouble.
Apparently so, because there's like 3 times in this movie where Lois is in peril and he just shows up.
Yeah.
So he's like constantly got an ear cocked out for her, apparently.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said about the plot, this movie has got enough plot for 3 movies. There's way too much plot, and it's convoluted. Especially when it comes to Lex Luthor, and we find out that he's been manipulating all of this kind of stuff.
But in such a stupid way. Like, I don't understand how nobody figures out what Luthor's doing because he fucking signed the murder. Like, there's no reason. If you want to frame Superman, you don't do it with a gun, first off. And, I know we see the scene when they torch all the bodies, but still, I mean, isn't anyone going to, do an autopsy on any of these bodies to see, like, what they really died of? Because it's very easy to torch bodies after they've already been shot.
Especially when you're using a flamethrower because the chemical residue would still be on the bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if Superman had used his heat vision, you would not have any chemical residue.
Exactly.
You see what I mean when I say if you just take 5 minutes to stop and apply common sense and logic to this plot, it falls apart.
Even Luthor, I mean, if you want to frame someone, right? Why would you use the experimental ammunition your company is the only one on Earth that makes, and this ammo is not available, it's not on the market anywhere in the world? Why would you have your men use that weaponry? Why not just use regular bullets?
Why don't you just put a sign on LexCorp? But okay. First of all, oh man. You remember when The Shining came out?
No.
Or maybe you might not. You're younger. Okay, when The Shining came out, Stephen King said that he didn't care for it too much. He said one of the reasons why he didn't care for it was Jack Nicholson's performance.
Yeah.
He said because the movie is about one man's slow descent into madness. He said Jack Nicholson, right from the first scene, looks like he can't wait to get his wife and child up to this hotel and axe murder the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And he said that throws the whole movie off. Okay, Jesse Eisenberg has the same problem here because he's obviously batshit crazy right from the start. So it's like there's no suspense. So I'm looking at these people doing business with him, and I'm saying, can't these people see how nuts he is? Why are they doing business with him? Why is it so hard to connect the dots and say, well, yeah, Lex Luthor is behind it? Well, how do you figure? Well, he's crazy. Look at him.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good transition talking about Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, because I don't know anyone who would watch Jim Carrey in Batman Forever and think that's a good way to play Lex Luthor.
Ooh, good observation. Yeah, you hit it right on the head. Yeah. Yeah, because that's what he's doing. He's doing Jim Carrey.
He is. And it's just, first off, it doesn't fit his style of acting at all.
No.
Right? Second, it doesn't fit the character of Lex Luthor at all. So I have no idea why they're doing it this way.
And you know what? Okay, here's a problem with it. Because everybody else in the movie is so serious and stoic and dense and ponderous, his performance looks even more wacky.
Yeah.
Because he's doing all of this, and he's doing all of these ticks and twicks and everything. So that you get to the point where you said, well, shouldn't this guy be on meds?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be doing a Batman Superman movie and you're going to have Lex Luthor as the villain, and if you can only have one character in that movie be like the comic relief, zany character, it should not be fucking Lex Luthor.
And don't get me wrong, folks. I love Jesse Eisenberg. That cat, he's a terrific actor.
He is, yeah.
I love everything he did. I don't blame him because okay, I get what he's trying to do because he's trying to do something different from Gene Hackman and Kevin Spacey. You know, he's trying to do his own Lex Luthor, and you know, yeah, he's basing it on, you know, like you said, you know, Mark Zuckerberg and all of these other, you know, kind of tech guys that you know make $1 billion when they're 19 years old and stuff like that. It's not. It's not a characterization I buy for Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
it's not. And also, he's too young. You know, I think in 20 years, bring him back and let him play Lex Luthor. But right now, for this movie, yeah, you know what? I'm watching him, and all I can keep thinking is, damn, I wish this was Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, same here. Or, you know, Michael Rosenbaum, because he played a young Lex Luthor, but he was still felt like Lex Luthor.
Yeah, and also he was working with other actors in his own age, you know, because they were all young.
Yeah.
So you didn't find a young Lex Luthor. Here he looks like a little kid, you know, playing with the grown-ups.
Yeah. And there's that weird scene too when he's with that senator and he's like putting the Jolly Rancher in his mouth. I'm just like, what the hell are you doing?
You see what I mean? Yeah. And the senator is just standing there taking it instead of just smacking the shit out of him and say, you know something, the deal's off. Goodbye.
I mean, even that actor, I don't think that was in the script because that actor is like, I don't know what the hell's happening right now.
Yeah, exactly. Now, either he's a very good actor or that was like a total improvisation on Jesse Eisenberg's part because he looks as a surprise as like, dang, you know. But he goes along with it. He stays in character. I'll give him that.
Yeah. And all right, and then we also have Tao Okamoto is another one of those actors in this movie who's just completely wasted, right? I mean, she was great as Mariko in The Wolverine. And then you bring her in this movie and you have her play Mercy, who's like a very memorable character from the animated series. And she does nothing. She gets like
Lex
one line.
Blows her up.
Yeah.
He lets her get blown up.
Yeah. And there's also this whole thing about, I don't know, Zack Snyder is so obsessed with this idea of Superman being an alien, right? But the whole thing that he keeps forgetting is that Superman was raised on Earth.
Yeah.
But he's always acting like, I don't understand humanity. What is human, right?
Yeah. See, okay, Superman doesn't feel like he's an alien. He doesn't feel like he's an alien because he knows nothing of Krypton. He only knows of Krypton of what he knows when he went to the Fortress of Solitude. And, you know, and the hologram of Jor-El said, okay, well, you're Kal-El, you come from planet Krypton, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But how can I put it? He accepts his heritage, but that's not who he is.
Yeah.
He's Clark Kent from Smallville.
Right. Well, actually, and I will say one of the best lines in Man of Steel was when he tells the general at the end, he's like, I'm from Kansas, General. I'm as American as they come.
Yeah. So all of those issues about him being an alien, he never had those.
Yeah.
He never had those because he was raised as a human being. You know, it's like if you take a child from one culture and raise him up in another culture.
Right.
Pretty much. He identifies with that culture.
Exactly.
He doesn't identify with the one that is his native heritage.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a very weird thing to have this morose, sad Superman going around moping, talking about how he feels isolated, and he can't connect with humanity. What? Really?
Yeah. And
you're raised on a farm. It don't get more human than that.
Yeah.
You know.
There's also that one scene, I think, when Lois is telling him about the shield, and she's like, this means something. And he says, on my world, it did. Right? But Superman doesn't think of Krypton as his world. He thinks his world as Earth.
He thinks of Krypton as the place he came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
He tells me, "Oh, well, I came from Krypton, but I was born on Earth."
Yeah, exactly.
He's used that line. He said that in comic books and probably in movies too. But he said that, yeah, he said, "I came from Krypton."
Yeah. And just like the fundamental misunderstanding. And also there's that other scene when Martha is telling him, you don't owe this world a damn thing, right? You can be their savior or be none of it. Like that's just, again, it's just such a corruption of the values that the Kents actually taught him.
I've always maintained that the real heroes of the DC universe is Jonathan and Martha Kent.
Yeah.
Because of the way they raised up Superman.
Yes.
And in turn, he inspired so many other superheroes. And, he was like the template for what they should follow.
Yeah.
As far as the responsibilities that you have of putting these vast powers at the service of humanity. So my hats is always off to Jonathan and Martha Kent, because if they hadn't raised up Superman right, who knows where we would. However, I do not feel about that way about the Jonathan and Martha Kent that we get in Man of Steel and in this movie. Because there's one part in the movie where he like talks to the ghost of his father.
That is such a bizarre scene. Like I have no idea what the hell's going on there.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
It just like came out of nowhere.
And like I'm not sure, is Clark hallucinating? Is he actually somehow encountered the ghost of his dad up in the Arctic somewhere? Like it's just so weird. And it's just like the story he tells is just like the most cynical fucking story ever, right? Because he's like, oh, well, yeah, we had tried to save the cows and, my mother baked me a cake, called me a hero, and then we found out the water got backed up and their whole farm was drowned. It's like, so what, you're saying that you shouldn't do anything? I mean, it's just like, I don't get the message here.
Yeah. No, you got the message. That was it. The message is do nothing. And like I said, it's, I don't know. I just can't get with a sad, morose Superman who feels he cannot connect with humanity.
Well, that's why
that's the whole thing. He does connect with the whole of humanity. He feels like he's a citizen of the world.
And I think that, and it's so weird watching this movie after seeing the premiere of Superman and Lois, because we get the way Superman is supposed to be. We get a Superman who is in touch with humanity, who understands that he is a human first and Kryptonian second.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did have a weird feeling watching this after seeing Superman and Lois. I did have because I said, something, this might as well be Earth 1 and Earth 2.
Yeah.
Really. As far as Superman goes. Batman, Batman is the same dick he always is. And thank God for that. Because matter of fact, most of my favorite scenes in this movie involve Ben Affleck. There are some things I wish they had went into a little bit more, because apparently he let Wayne Manor go to rack and ruin, and he built this whole new complex on the other side of the lake.
Yeah,
that is cool as hell. I said, damn, this is that's a fresh hideout to be hanging out in. But I wanted to know why he just let Wayne Manor, apparently go to rack and ruin.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
I want to say one more thing about Jesse Eisenberg before we get into, because I do want to talk about Bruce Wayne and Alfred and all that. But so another thing is Lex Luthor's whole motivation, right? His whole reason for going after Superman. That's another thing that just doesn't make any sense, right? He hates Superman because his father beat him. And Superman wasn't around to save. I mean, it's just...
There is absolutely no reason. I mean, really, you said that, there is no motivation. Holly Hunter, who plays the senator, even she comes to him and he's got this cockeyed idea. He says, okay, well, if I have enough kryptonite, I can make a weapon to kill Superman. And she looks at him, she said, well, why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to? Yeah, she asked him, well, why do you want to kill Superman? What's the big deal? He's not hurting anybody. Oh, well, no, he's a god. He flies above us, and and we're supposed to resent him for that, you know. And he says a whole lot of stuff, but really, the bottom line is he hates Superman because he's Lex Luthor, and we've been indoctrinated through the comic books and movies and cartoons and everything that Lex Luthor hates Superman. So,
but when really, I mean, Man of Steel gives you the perfect setup for why Lex Luthor should hate Superman, right? Because my whole conception of Lex Luthor is that he thinks that anyone who has that much power is eventually going to use that power for his own selfish interests.
Right.
Because that's how Lex Luthor thinks. He thinks, well, if I had that power, of course I would use it for my own interests.
Well,
so he thinks that Superman is one day going to turn on humanity. And Man of Steel gives you that perfect template there, right? You just saw what happens when you see Superman Unleashed.
Right.
Right. And not only that, but one of the things about Lex, this is why you would need like Bryan Cranston or something, because you need an older Lex Luthor, someone who helped build up Metropolis.
Exactly. Because that was a large part of, you know, the John Byrne when he did it, is that Lex resented Superman for stealing a lot of his thunder and his attention.
Yeah.
Because he was the number one man in Metropolis until Superman showed up.
Right.
And then he took a lot of that away from him. You know, so, okay, give me that as a motivation. But again, you made an excellent point just a minute ago. That's why you need, that's why you needed an older Lex Luthor for this. Because what possible reason could this kid have for like he doesn't like Superman?
Yeah, it's just so weird. I mean, Superman wasn't even Superman when you were a kid and your father was beating you.
Seriously, you know.
But he has this whole thing. He's like, if God exists, he's not all powerful. If he's all powerful, then he can't be all good. It's like, so that means that you're all powerful. That means you're not good, or you're not all powerful and you are.
Yeah. Like I said, he hates Superman because if you have Lex Luthor in your Superman movie, well, him and Superman are supposed to fight because they've been fighting ad infinitum for 80 years. So,
and he also somehow like I can kind of guess how he discovers Superman's identity because there is the whole thing. This is why I'm kind of surprised that Lois is surprised that people know Superman cares about her, right? When she's talking to the former general who's now obviously who's actually the Martian Manhunter in disguise.
Yeah, Harry Lennox.
Yeah. And she talks to him and she's like, well, how would they even know Superman was going to be there? It's like, oh, they knew because of me. It's like, well, bitch, you were making out with the guy in the Death on top of the ashes of Metropolis.
I mean, it's not that hard to figure out. All people got to do is just replay the tape.
Yeah.
And then say, oh, okay, well.
And then here comes this, you know.
Superman, okay, we got that.
And here comes this, you know, this tall, dark-haired guy with blue eyes who just started working at Metropolis, and automatically him and Lois are living together, and it's like, So yeah, I can understand how Lex figures out that guy is Superman.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
Now, I have no freaking clue how a guy as clearly stupid and insane as Lex Luthor is in this movie can figure out that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
I know how.
Okay.
He found the contractor who built the ramp in the middle of the lake. He just went around to different contractors and said, listen, let me ask you a question. This is going to sound kind of weird. Say like about 10, 15 years ago for Bruce Wayne, did you build a ramp in the middle of a lake that opens up oh shit, you know something, Mr. Luthor? Actually, I asked him, why did he need it? That's okay. That's all I need to know. Thank you. Bye. Click. Seriously, that's all he had to do. He had to find. When I watched that scene, I said, wait a minute. Where does he find these contractors to build it for him?
Well, see, now it actually makes more sense with the Snyder Batman, because I totally believe that Snyder's version of Bruce Wayne just straight up fucking murdered those people.
I have heard a fan theory, and this is the only one that I can go with, is that Bruce Wayne went to China and he flew a bunch of Chinese over and he put them in a plane and didn't let them see where they were going. And he made them live, on his property while they built that. And then he flew them back and they didn't. That's the only way I can. I'm sorry, because you get stuff like in The Dark Knight Rises where I'm trying to figure out the conversation between Bruce Wayne and the contractor who says, okay, Mr. Wayne, explain to me again why you need these giant plexiglass cubes to be hydraulically lifted out of this underground lake. Is this some kind of sex thing? Is this a sex cult thing, Mr. Wayne? I'm sorry. I'm trying to, it's just me, it's just me, folks. I mean, I know you have to suspend your disbelief, but I figured that's how Lex Luthor in this movie found out he was Bruce Wayne. He just called up a bunch of contractors.
All right, so now let's talk about Batman. So, like we said before, Ben Affleck does a really good job, but I think the material does work against him in a lot of ways. And it is kind of a miracle that Affleck is able to give as convincing a performance as he does when the material is still working against him in a lot of ways. Because this Batman is, basically a xenophobe, right? Like he's like, it's like the classic, scary immigrant fear that he's obsessed with.
The scary immigrant?
Well, yeah, because he's like, he's the alien. We have to kill the alien. We have to kill the alien, right? It's just
okay.
And it's like they turn him into, and he's, plus the whole thing about him branding people.
Yeah, that was weird. That I can't go with that. Why? But to give the movie his credit, even Alfred, addresses that. He says, "Well, is this what we do now?"
Yeah.
Why? And Bruce says something like, "Well, we've always been criminals." And Alfred said, "Alfred said, well, what are you talking about? What's that got to do with it?"
Yeah.
You're branding people.
That's another thing that Alfred putting up with that shit too is something else I didn't buy. Like, as good as Jeremy Irons is, Alfred and the Alfred I know would never put up with that shit. He would have been like, look, if you're going to do this, then I'm out of here.
Yeah. He would, like Alfred, excuse me, because Alfred, in so many ways, is Bruce's conscience.
Yes, yeah.
And he reins him in when he goes too far. And yeah, Alfred would have never put up with that.
And when he has gone too far, Alfred has made good on those threats. He has left several times.
Yeah, he's walked. Yeah, he walked. He said, you know what? Call me when you come back to your senses.
And, Michael Caine did that too in Dark Knight Rises, right? He's like, you know what? You're going to do that. I'm not going to be part of this anymore. And he just got up and he walked.
But as I've said before, the best thing I like about Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons is that I can see them as being the Michael Keaton, Michael Gal, Batman and Alfred 20 years down the road.
Yeah.
There's just something in their performance that has echoes when I go back and I watch the older Batman movies, the Tim Burton. I see flashes of that in there. And like I said before, they got that great line in Justice League where they actually reference the robot penguins from Batman Returns, where they say, "Oh, don't you miss the good old days where all we had to worry about was rocket fire and robot?" I said, "Oh wow, that was so." That's the one thing I love about their performance. They, out of all the actors in this movie, they've got the best rapport.
Yeah, you believe that they've got a history. They do a really good job making you believe that.
Yeah.
But also with the branding thing too, is there's this whole thing in the story that the criminals who are branded, they get attacked, they get killed by the other criminals in prison, right?
Let me ask you something. Did you ever think you'd see a Superman Batman movie where a guy gets shanked in a prison yard?
Well, we did see a shanking in Superman Returns. Lex Luthor kryptonite
right.
shit. But no, you're right. But I don't understand the logic behind that. Like, it's known that Batman is inflicting this brand on people, but the criminals in prison, they think, oh, you're working with Batman, so we're gonna I don't understand the logic behind that.
Yeah. I don't I don't understand the logic of Batman branding people in the first place.
Yeah, it's needlessly cruel. It makes no sense at all. There's no the only reason for it is just to be a torturous son of a bitch.
Yeah. It is. But and that ties into later on where we see where when they get down to their big fight, and Batman has the kryptonite spear, he actually indulges in a little bit of sadism where he draws it across Superman's face.
Yeah.
And he puts a scar on his face. I said, damn, and that gave me like an icky feeling. I said, you know what? Batman wouldn't do it. If he was going to do it, he'd just do it.
Yeah.
Just stoof and get it over with. He wouldn't indulge in that little bit of sadism. So.
Yeah. And also, I hate the idea of like there's the scene at the warehouse scene is as good as this. There is that scene at the end where it's lifted from the Dark Knight, where, Dark Knight Returns, where he's got the hostage and he says, if you don't drop it, I'll kill her. And Batman says, I believe you. And then he shoots the guy and blows him up, right?
Yeah.
Now, Zack Snyder says, oh, I got that from Dark Knight Returns. Well, no, we didn't. Because that is one scene that everybody misreads in The Dark Knight Returns. And part of the problem is the artwork isn't that clear in it. But you can tell from the story that, because one of the whole points in this whole book, in the whole story, is that Batman still does not cross that line. Even in The Dark Knight Returns, he still refuses to kill, right?
Right.
The Joker frames him for his murder by breaking his own neck. But he never kills anyone. So, and even when, the new commissioner, Yindel, she comes in, she's reading off this laundry list of charges. She never once mentions murder as one of the charges.
Exactly.
So this is the one scene that's always misread. And I'm always like, well, think about it logically. If Batman wouldn't kill the Joker, if he wouldn't go that far, what makes you think he's going to kill some punk?
Yeah, some low level punk that, he could take. They have a scene that's in there where, he goes over all the different ways that he can take out, like this punk that he's fighting. He says, well, okay, from this position, I've got 8 ways I can disable him, and 2 to kill him.
Yeah.
So, Batman's got multiple ways of taking out people. He doesn't have to kill. Matter of fact, that's why he works so hard at making himself the best martial artist he can, so he doesn't have to kill anybody. He got that great scene in the same book that you mentioned, where he actually breaks a gun and he tells the street gang that he's taking over. He said, "This is the weapon of the enemy. We don't use this shit."
Yes.
He said, this isn't us. We don't do this. We don't use this.
Yeah.
But that's not Batman.
Right. The whole thing about Batman is Batman is very, Batman is the most anti-gun guy you'll ever get.
Oh, yeah.
Because a gun killed his parents. So he's, and I know in some comic book he was different, but that's the version of Batman I prefer to stick with, is the one who's like, we don't use guns, right? Guns are not guns are the weapon.
Now that doesn't mean he doesn't know how to use one, because they have a scene in this movie where he puts a tracker on the truck that's holding the kryptonite. Yeah. I mean, he's like a half a mile away up in the air, and he accurately puts it there. He knows how to use a gun.
Yes, yeah.
He just he's like Tom Selleck in Quickly Down Under, where he doesn't use a revolver until the end of the movie. And then when he kills him, Alan Rickman looking at him said, "But you said that." He said, "Listen, I never said I didn't know how to use one of these things.
Yeah.
I just don't like using them. There's a big difference."
Yeah.
So
but that's one of the things that's why I've always hated whenever they show the Batmobile and it's got like gun turrets on it and everything, because to me that's just not Batman.
No. And Batman's got like machine guns and stuff like that on this iteration of the Batmobile. But I like it because it's not an armored tank. It's more like a roadster. It's more like an armored roadster.
Yeah, it is a much better. I do like this Batmobile better. I mean, still my favorite take on the Batmobile in live action is the Burton one. Yeah, exactly.
That's like my favorite Batmobile too, because you know what? Okay, I can see Batman like in what was that? The Dark Knight, where he's driving around in that tank that apparently can jump over rooftops.
Yeah, the tumbler.
That's something Batman pulls out once in a while for special occasions. He doesn't go driving around in that thing normally. He needs something that's quick, fast, and maneuverable and can smash through walls and stuff like that, like what he drives in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's got like one machine gun turret on the thing. It doesn't have like 8 or 9 different, rockets and all that kind, doesn't have all that kind of thing. it's more important for him to get away fast.
Yeah, yeah.
from whatever.
Although my favorite Batmobile is still the one from the animated series. That one I think was like the perfect design.
They're all pretty good.
They're all pretty good, but that one's my favorite.
The one from the Adam West.
Mm-hmm.
I love that one, of course. But yeah, like the Tim Burton one. Yeah, that's a fantastic design.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the one in this one. A whole lot. There was something else I wanted to say about the Batmobile. Not the Batmobile, but the fact that too often we get a Batman that just like beats the piss.
Mm-hmm.
He just overcomes his enemies through superior firepower and technology. But we actually see a Batman here that actually does detective work as Bruce Wayne.
Kind of, but he's a really bad detective as well. Because you got this thing where Lex Luthor is sending him all these, these newspaper clippings, like "you let your family die" written on it. And Bruce Wayne never thinks to figure out where these things are coming from.
Well, he's too busy trying to figure out how to kill Superman.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I'm like, the real Bruce Wayne, like he would be approaching this more methodically. He'd be like, what's going on? Like the real Bruce Wayne would have figured out what Lex Luthor is doing like in 10 minutes flat.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because as we said, this is the dumbest plot known to man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because first of all, Bruce Wayne / Batman doesn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, he would have figured out and of course, Lex Luthor, he would have figured it out. He said, okay, well, because as far as Batman is concerned, everybody's got something to hide. Everybody's got an ulterior motive.
I mean, Lois Lane is a better detective in this movie than Batman because she figures out that Luthor's behind it. And but Luthor signed his work to begin with, so she's not even that good of a detective.
She's not even that good either. Yeah.
She just asked the one question nobody else would.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, like really, they do show him doing some detective work, but he's still not a very good detective.
He's still not that is one thing that Batman has never been served well in the movie, except for the first Tim Burton movie, where we actually see Michael Keaton in the Batcave working, putting together clues and stuff like that.
We get hints of it. But again, it's like it all happens between the scenes, right? It all happens like off camera.
Yeah.
So like we get hints of it, but we don't really kind of see it play out in any major way. It all gets overshadowed by the action and by the gadgets and all that.
And also in The Dark Knight.
Yes. Yeah.
We do see the Christian Bale. Bruce Wayne, we do see him doing actual detective work.
Yeah.
Putting clues together and stuff like that.
Like doing ballistics tests and all that kind of thing.
Exactly. Which is what I like. I mean, I think it's important to show that Batman is a detective, which is why I'm looking forward to this. What is it? Who directed this new one?
Oh, Matt Reeves. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they say that in this one, we do get that aspect of Batman.
Yeah.
Where we see him, doing detective work and putting clues together and stuff like that. So, yeah, because always in these movies is Batman winning through superior technology or firepower.
So, well, that's not that's still going to be like another year away, isn't it? Yeah, March 4th,
Probably.
2022. Yeah.
Probably.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It'll be really, really cool to see a more detective-based Batman.
Right. Because we see that in the trailer where it's like a room full of cops and Batman's walking around in there and like nobody like bats an eye,
Right. Yeah. It's like, like we mentioned, like those scenes in the animated series when he's showing up at crime scenes and talking with Gordon and everything.
Exactly. Because he goes over to Commissioner Gordon and, so, apparently he's called him in to consult on a crime. So I said, oh, okay. Now, see, that's cool. Because like you said, that reminded me of a scene from any episode of the animated series.
Yeah. Or the Denny O'Neil comics. He did that kind of stuff a lot in there. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a credit that Affleck is able to do as good of a Bruce Wayne as he does with all the limitations that the script puts on him. Because, again, we have this thing where, and it was the same thing in Watchmen, where Zack Snyder read the comic book, but it's clear he didn't quite understand the comic book because he thought The Dark Knight Returns was all about Batman becoming a psychotic, murderous vigilante when he wasn't. It wasn't that at all.
No. The one thing, and again, this is a movie. Okay, we get to the moment where they get ready to have the big throwdown.
Mm-hmm.
Superman flies to where the bat signal is shining, and he lands right in front of Batman, and he says, clear as day, I need to talk to you. Mm-hmm. Lex Luthor is behind, and Batman just said, fuck that shit. And he just unloads on. I said, wait a minute. You telling me you couldn't wait 5 minutes to listen to what the man has got? Lex Luthor right then and there should have triggered you. Wait a minute. Okay. You already got all your traps and gadgets and everything set up. You can take them out anytime. You mean you couldn't take 5 minutes to listen to what the man had to say?
Well, also, I'm still kind of weird on the whole, I'm going to use my bat signal to summon Superman.
Well, remember he had that line where he told him, he said, well, next time they shine your signal, don't answer.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, it's just such a weird way that it happens here because it goes on right after Lex Luthor tells him, kill Batman or I'm going to kill your mom.
Yeah. And okay. And gosh, why? Okay, Lex Luthor already has, because doesn't he have the kryptonite? He had the kryptonite.
No, Batman stole it. Batman stole it. Remember, there's that scene in the LexCorp facility when.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. But okay. First of all, okay. Why was Lex Luthor so obsessed with having Batman kill Superman?
I have no idea. I mean, maybe with like, his eccentric personality and just like his lack of logic with anything. I think Lex Luthor is actually John Peters.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense that he has this obsession with Batman. What would make you think that Batman is capable of killing Superman? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a boost to his ego, sure, but what would make you think? Why would you give somebody else the satisfaction of doing it?
Yeah. It's just another one. And it's like when everyone says the Ultimate Edition makes the whole story so much better, and it doesn't really. Like there's still all these, you could still drive a dump truck through all the plot holes in this movie.
I love how they go out of their way after Doomsday shows up, which is the reanimated clone body of General Zod mixed with Lex Luthor's DNA. He shows up, okay. He tears up half of downtown Metropolis. And then Batman shows up and gets a smart idea to lead him over to Gotham City so he can tear up half of Gotham City as well. Okay. Well, now that we done level half of Metropolis, now let's go get, let's go tear down, and then they go out of their way, I guess because of the backlash from Man of Steel, to stress that, well, this is the area where this is the warehouse area and nobody's here at night, so again, doesn't make a lick of sense.
No. And then we get the most infamous moment in superhero cinema history.
I will give you 5 minutes of unchecked time to air your grievances, my friend.
Martha. First off,
Go get him, son.
First off, you're Superman, right? You're trying to convince Batman to let you go. Why would you use your mother's name instead of just saying they're going to kill my mom?
Matter of fact, there's a half other thing. How about Lex Luthor is making us fight? Lex Luthor is behind this. This is a setup.
Yeah. I mean, he's got all the time to go through this whole strange thing about save Martha. You can't say like Luthor's doing this.
Like, there's a half other things he could say that would make more sense in the stress of that moment. Or like you even said, yeah, save my mother, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah.
Huh? What? See Batman, what? Mother?
But see, even still, like the whole thing of like Batman being moved by the fact that Superman has a mother doesn't make any sense because he goes through that whole thing at the beginning of the fight where he says, "Oh, I bet your parents taught you that you were special and all that," right? So he knows he's been raised by parents.
And would you believe that the first time I saw this movie was the first time that I realized that their mothers had the same first name?
Yeah, because it's
it never hit me before for some reason.
yeah, because it's such a stupid thing. It'd be like if because Civil War came out the same year as this, right? Imagine that Cap and Iron Man resolve their differences in Civil War because Cap's like, "Oh, Bucky's first name is James," and then Tony's like, "My best friend's name is James too."
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
It's the exact same thing. But see, the difference between Civil War is that we've had a whole bunch of other movies where we've seen the relationship between these two characters, so that when Iron Man and Captain America fight, it really means something to us.
Yes.
This movie doesn't mean that. First of all, it's a very clumsy fight. There's really no imagination to it at all. It's just the both of them just slamming each other up against walls and Batman hitting them with kryptonite grenades and everything like that. There's no suspense because we know they're not going to die. Well, we know Superman's going to die, but he's Superman. He's coming back in the next movie.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's right. The whole death of Superman story is such a stupid thing to waste on a movie like this because Justice League is coming out. You know that he's not going to stay dead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the worst kept secret since what's his name? Benedict Cumberbatch playing Khan.
Yeah.
Of course he was going to be. Or what's his name from Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained playing Blofeld. Christoph Waltz.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody knew he was. As soon as they said, "Oh, Christoph Waltz is going to be Inspector," you knew he was going to be playing Blofeld. And just like this, when you see Superman die in this movie, you know he's going to be coming back in Justice League.
You know he's coming back because, like you said, we know Justice League is coming up.
Yeah.
They told us before this movie came out, well, this is going to lead into Justice League.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Superman's coming back.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what's the point? Matter of fact, you're wasting our goddamn time, really.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And you expect us to have all of this pathos overseeing Superman getting killed when we know he's coming back. So, it's like, okay, we got another 40 minutes left to go. In the thing. Let's hurry up and get it over with.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the only surprise that we get in this movie that was worthy of it is when we get to see Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. She shows up,
yeah,
in the fight.
The one bright spot in the movie.
Yeah, and I love that scene where Doomsday knocks her on her ass and she actually smiles.
Yeah, yeah.
She grins. She said, "Okay, I love this shit," because she's able to cut loose.
Yeah,
and so yeah.
There's also that weird scene when Wonder Woman comes up, and then Superman looks at Batman. He's like, "Is she with you?" And Batman's like, "Oh, I thought she was with you." It's like, bitch, you just spent like half the movie interacting with her.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Again, this is another misguided attempt at humor.
Yeah.
But I do have to admit, it was nice. It was nice finally seeing Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman for the first time on screen together.
Yeah.
It was a nice moment.
I just wish it had a much better setup.
Yes, I wish it had a much better setup. Because this movie is, I don't know, like I said, I was watching it today and I'm sitting and I'm just watching it. I'm not engaged with the story, because the story made no sense. I know where this is going. So, I mean, this movie is what I like to call chewing gum for the brain.
Yes.
You know how you take a stick of chewing gum and you chew it and the flavor is there for about 20 minutes. And then after that, you're just chewing a rubber.
Yes.
And you forget what the taste felt like. Okay. That's Superman versus Batman.
Yes. Yeah.
It's chewing gum for the brain. There's flavor while you're watching it, but then you turn it off, and 20 minutes later, you can't remember what the flavor was.
Yeah, yeah. And just like the whole way that they did, even just like the way they decided to kill Superman is just so stupid, right? Because you got the kryptonite spear. Superman's vulnerable to kryptonite. But you've also got Wonder Woman right there who's just as strong and can also drive the spear into him.
Why not just throw her the spear and say, listen,
Yeah.
take this and stick it? Matter of fact, she knows how to use the spear better than you do.
Yeah, yeah.
She's Amazon. Matter of fact, she just stuck him in the brain.
And also, like, I gotta wonder too, because now here's something else I didn't get watching the funeral scene for Clark Kent, right? So, as a writer, okay, if you know that you're going to be bringing Superman back in the very next movie, then you know you're going to have to deal with the problem of you just killed Clark Kent as well.
Right.
So why would you write yourself into that situation in the first place?
Okay, here's what I don't understand. Okay, now we see the scene where Clark's body is in the Kent house. They got him laid out.
Yeah, yeah.
And his mother puts a picture of, him and, his father and his mother. Okay, so we know that they buried Clark Kent.
Yeah, yeah.
Whose body was in Superman's casket?
No one, because Bruce said at the end, he's like, they're burying an empty casket in Metropolis.
Well, didn't anybody? Well, how did they explain what happened to Superman's body?
They didn't. I don't know how he did that, but yeah, that's another one of the things they just don't explain. Like the close explanation is like, oh, it's an empty casket.
And nobody asked anybody, well, where's Superman's body at? I mean, what did I don't know what did the Kryptonian fairies come and take it away?
And I don't understand why Superman's even getting such this. I mean, he was considered a national pariah just like yesterday.
We just saw that they had the Capitol building was blown up, and they were blaming him for it.
Yeah.
Why are they giving him a hero's funeral?
Yeah. It just so much stuff in this movie happens because it's supposed to happen, but they don't give any thought to why it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Like another example. Well, another example too is. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. That bothers me because if it's empty casket, somebody had to say, well, what happened to Superman's body? What did Bruce Wayne say? Okay, well, I took it away for study, or or Star Labs has got it, or something. Oh, well, it's an empty casket. And nobody thought to ask what happened to Superman's body.
Well, even the Superman comic books, they did that, right? When he died, they put his body in the tomb, and then his body went missing. And there was a whole story point of like what happened to Superman's body.
Yeah.
And then when they did bring him back, because they knew they were going to be bringing Superman back in a year, so they arranged it so that Clark Kent was not dead; he was missing.
Right, because as a matter of fact, I remember that storyline, and they actually said they could never find Clark's body.
Right. Yeah.
Lost in all the rubble and everything, which would have made more sense to me here.
Yes.
If they said, well, something, we couldn't, we didn't find Clark's body.
Yeah.
And let him be buried as Superman.
Yes. Yeah.
That would have made more sense to me that we see that, we get this mishigosh and, and we get that, like you said, that throwaway line, well, we buried an empty casket. So y'all going through all of this rigmarole, giving him a hero's funeral, and there's nobody in the casket, and nobody asked what happened to the body.
Yeah.
Surely the government, because they took Zod's body, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The government would want Superman's body.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'm just saying,
And I'm trying to figure out too, like, I don't really know how Luthor got arrested either at the end, because there's not really any evidence linking him to anything. So
exactly, why is Luthor in jail?
Yeah. Oh God, this movie, it's just, you know what? A lot of times when you watch a bad movie and you watch it in the moment, and like you said, when you go back and you watch it again years later, you're more objective when you're watching it, right? And I found that with a lot of these movies. Like I found that with Batman and Robin, for example. There were things I really found that it was actually an enjoyable movie. I did not find that with this movie. It's still a steaming pile of shit.
My opinion, even after seeing it all this time, is still the same thing. When I first saw this movie in the theaters, I wished it had been Batman and Wonder Woman and no Superman, because everything that's got to deal with Batman and Wonder Woman, I like. Anything got to deal with Superman and Lex Luthor and Lois Lane, I can't stand.
Yeah.
I don't. Nah.
Yeah.
If this was a Batman Wonder Woman movie, I'd have loved it. Because those are the best parts to me.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I give Snyder credit for giving us Gal Gadot. Like, I do give him credit for that, because she's been amazing as Wonder Woman. So I do give him credit for that. I don't understand all the story choices that led up to this point, and also this is another thing that kind of thought was really, like, they made this whole big push about, we're going to see Aquaman in this movie, and we're going to see the Flash, and we're going to see Cyborg. And all we get is these little video clips that Luthor has on his hard drive. And why is Lex Luthor designing superhero logos?
Listen, must be the same reason why Reed Richards designed superhero costumes.
I mean, it's just, I'm looking at this and I'm just like, did he just have like this subscription to, the Adobe Creative Cloud, and he just felt he had to use?
Because he's assigned all of their superhero. Okay, he's a super fast guy, but you just so happen to give him a yellow lightning bolt and you assign that to him. Aquaman, you give him. I mean, really? Lex? I mean, it makes your head hurt. Really, it does. Yeah. I mean, okay, so let me ask you something. Would this movie work for you if I said that basically it was nothing more than a setup for Justice League?
No, because I knew that going into it. Even as a setup for Justice League, it's still just a terrible movie.
Oh, okay. All right. I was trying to give the people who like this movie. So because surprisingly enough, there's a whole lot of people that like this movie.
And it's completely
online.
It's completely inexplicable to me. I do not, and like, even if you're, and I've certainly seen the argument being made that, it's a different Superman, it's a different Batman for a new dark. Even if you go with that logic, right? I think that's a poor reasoning, but let's give the benefit of the doubt. Say you go with that logic. The story still makes no fucking sense.
The story makes no sense. Yeah, exactly. The story makes no sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It makes no sense. But like I said earlier, that comes to the fact that it's a whole bunch of unrelated stories cobbled together and stitched together, by the mad Dr. Zack Snyder in the Frankenstein lab. Yeah. And that's what this movie, it's a Frankenstein's monster of a movie. It is.
Yeah. It really makes me wonder just what we're going to see in a few weeks when we see the Snyder Cut of Justice League.
Oh, God. You know what? At this point, I just want to see it so we can review it and put it behind us.
But you know what I was reading today is that when I was looking at the news headlines, apparently it ends on a cliffhanger, which is expected because it was supposed to be the first of a 2-part series. So I don't think we're going to hear the end of it, because I think what's going to happen now is all the Snyder fans are going to be demanding that he be allowed to finish the part 2.
Oh, okay.
And I guarantee you, $10 says that's the next fight. And we're going to be hearing about that for the next 5 years.
Yeah. That's going to be another 5 years out of our lives. Oh, my God.
All right. Anything left to say about Batman v Superman?
Only that if you have not seen it and you do have HBO Max and you just want to watch it purely as a lead in to, Justice League, yeah, by all means. I mean, listen, you're sitting in your house, you're paying for it anyway. If you haven't seen it, why not watch it? It's not going to kill you.
You may wish that you may wish that you had your 3 hours back by the time you get to the end of it.
That's true.
Because there's no joke. This movie is 3 hours long.
Yeah, it's 3 hours long, which is why I said, because usually I try to watch movies that we're going to review. I try to watch it the day before. But I couldn't watch it the day before. But like I said, since I knew it was 3 hours, I watched it early this morning instead of waiting until the afternoon. I said, because something might have come up, and I wouldn't have watched it. But yeah, folks, this is like 3 and change. It's like 3 hours and 15 minutes long. And for a movie that's 3 hours and 15 long, it is so dense and so ponderous and so serious and so full of angst. And it takes itself so serious, and everybody is so serious.
And surprisingly devoid of action.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like the big fight between Superman and Batman lasts like 10 minutes?
Yeah, we really don't get a lot of action until, the end of the movie. Like you said, we get the Batman Superman fight, which we've been waiting for. We get the warehouse fight. We get, the Superman Batman fight, and then we get the fight with Doomsday.
Yeah.
Like boom, bang, bang, all in a row. Really the only other action we get is
the Batmobile chase scene.
Is the Batman trying to hijack the truck.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's it. You're right. There's not a lot of action in this movie until we get to the end. So 3 hours, that's a long time for me to, especially when, again, I gotta say, folks, this is a ponderous movie because everybody is so serious.
Yeah, it's not like Endgame where, you have, 3 hour and change, and then the last hour is like all action.
And also, Endgame felt like an hour.
Yeah. It moves at a much brisker pace.
Yeah. This is like mud, a mudslide.
Yeah.
Going downhill. That's the pace this movie.
A frozen mudslide.
Yeah, a frozen mudslide.
It's just so, it drags so much, and they make you feel every second of that 3 hours.
But again, I have to say that I recommend it for Ben Affleck as Batman, Bruce Wayne. You watch this movie and it makes you want to see him in his own solo movie.
Yeah, with a better director.
With a better director and
a better screenplay.
Story.
Yeah.
And a better,
so we get unfortunately we did get that with Gal Gadot, right? She was able to get her own solo movie with a better director and a better writing team, and it was amazing. Right?
Yeah.
So we did get
Wonder Woman is after this one.
Yes. Yeah, it came after this one, yeah. And then it came before Justice League. And also Jeremy Irons is Alfred, Ben Affleck is Batman, and Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. Those are really the only 3 reasons to sit through this movie.
And also, I think that we should give him his credit, because you know what? And I got a tremendous amount of respect for this guy, Henry Cavill, because he's not been served well.
No, he hasn't been.
He could be one of the great Supermen that we could be talking about him in the same way we talk about, Christopher Reeve, Brandon Routh, Tyler Hoechlin. We could be talking about if he had a director that gave him a story that could actually let him be Superman.
If it was written by someone who actually liked Superman.
Yeah.
Because
you know what? Henry Cavill, he gives a performance. And I think that if he was allowed to be Superman, the way Superman should be played, he'd be a classic for the
Well, I mean, we got flashes of that. We got very brief flashes of that in Justice League.
Yes, we did.
And we, CGI lip aside, we saw what Cavill's performance is capable of. And we have seen him in other movies where he's just charming as hell, right? Like Man from U.N.C.L.E. He was the best. Man from U.N.C.L.E. is a completely forgettable movie. I don't remember anything about that movie except for how charming Henry Cavill was in it.
I saw that movie. The only thing that I could think of, get this man into a tuxedo and let him play James Bond as soon as possible.
Yes, yeah.
When I saw Man from U.N.C.L.E., that was the first thing in my mind. Get this man to a tuxedo and make him the next James Bond.
Yes, yeah. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
All right.
You know what? Henry Cavill is one of these actors that he hasn't found, and God knows he's been trying, but he has not found that character that has clicked for him.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. He's done Superman. He's done. He did Man from U.N.C.L.E. He's doing The Witcher. So.
Yeah. But I really do hope, just like we saw Brandon Routh finally got to be able to be the Superman that we know that he could be. I'm hoping that one day the same will happen for Henry Cavill.
Yeah, same here.
Because I get the feeling that like interviews and seeing him, that he really does like being Superman.
Yeah,
but he wants to be a different type of Superman.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that does it for this week. As Derek already mentioned at the start of the show, there's no suspense in it. Next week, his pick is Avengers: Age of Ultron. So we'll be watching that to coincide with the WandaVision finale.
So your homework assignment is that if you have not yet watched WandaVision, and I know some of you have been waiting until the whole thing has been, so watch WandaVision and watch Age of Ultron, and you'll be all set for us next week.
Yes, absolutely. Until then, superherocinephiles.com is our website. Super Cinema Pod on both Twitter and Instagram if you want to follow us, and Superhero Cinephiles, search for us on Facebook, and feel free to join the group. And that about does it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in 1 week when we talk about Age of Ultron.
Thank you. Good night. God bless. Take care.
You have been listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Super Cinema Pod. Join our Facebook group by searching for Superhero Cinephiles, where you can interact with us and other superhero fans. If you'd like to support the show, you can become a regular supporter at Patreon or make a one-time donation through PayPal, both of which can be found at our website, superherocinephiles.com. If you buy or rent any movies through the Amazon links at our site, it helps support the show. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.